You know how every little girl grows up dreaming of her wedding day? The white dress, the vows, the kiss that seals forever? Yeah, I had all that. And I wish that was the end of my story. My name is Danielle. I married a man I thought I knew, Mark. We'd been together for nearly 3 years. Sweet, dependable, a little quiet, but thoughtful. The kind of guy who would never forget an anniversary, who kissed my forehead every night before bed. We didn't have fire, maybe, but we had security. And after what I'd been through in the past, I craved that. The wedding was perfect. Outdoor venue. Light breeze. Tears in his eyes when I walked down the aisle. I remember thinking, this is it. This is where my real life begins. And then we got to the airport. We were headed to Maui. My dream honeymoon. Just the two of us. Or so I thought. As we waited to board, Mark suddenly looked nervous, checking his phone repeatedly. I asked if something was wrong. That's when he blurted it out. His cousin Connor was joining us. Yes, you heard that right. His cousin. Joining us. On our honeymoon. I thought it was a joke. I laughed. I waited for the punchline. But he was serious. Dead serious. Mark claimed that Connor had just gone through a brutal breakup and was in a really dark place. That he needed family right now. That it would only be for a few days. That I should understand, because I'm such a compassionate person. And the worst part? He had already bought Connor's ticket, booked the hotel room, told him the itinerary, all without telling me. I stood there frozen, heart pounding in my chest, as Connor strolled up to our gate with his duffel bag and a wide, oblivious grin like he was tagging along on a college spring break trip. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip up our marriage certificate right there in the terminal. But I didn't. I played nice. I smiled. I sat through the flight in stunned silence while Mark snored next to me and Connor watched movies, chatting occasionally like we were all on a group vacation. Inside, though, something had cracked. And I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of a much darker truth, one that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my husband. We landed in Maui just past noon. The sky was postcard blue, the breeze warm and salt-tinted. I should have been breathless from the beauty, newly married, stepping into paradise. But instead, all I felt was a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. The hotel was stunning. Whitewashed balconies, swaying palms, that soft guitar music drifting through the lobby. But as the concierge handed over 3 key cards, I felt my stomach churn. Connor tossed his bag over his shoulder and winked at me like we were co-conspirators in some inside joke. Mark just nodded at the front desk guy, completely unfazed. I waited until we got to the suite before speaking. Where's his room? I asked, my voice brittle. Mark had the audacity to look surprised. What do you mean? You didn't book him a separate suite? He looked at me like I'd asked if we were planning to go skydiving with the Queen. No, he said. It's a big suite. There's a pull-out sofa in the living room. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Those 3 words rang in my ears like a warning siren. Not once did he say, "You'll be fine, honey." Not once did he ask if I was okay with this. He was more concerned about Connor's comfort than mine on our honeymoon. Connor threw himself onto the couch and turned on the TV, flipping through channels like he was home. I retreated to the bedroom and shut the door. I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed in my brand-new honeymoon robe, still embroidered with Mrs. Warner on the pocket. I stared at the floor, trying to understand how he'd gone from exchanging vows to sharing a suite with his broken-hearted cousin in under 48 hours. Mark came in minutes later. "You're overreacting," he said with that casual tone that used to sound calm but now just sounded dismissive. "I married you," I whispered. "Not the both of you." He sighed. "It's just for a few days. He's hurting. Can't you just be there for me on this?" That line, "be there for me," it stuck. Because I realized that to Mark, my role wasn't wife or partner. It was fixer, peacemaker, someone who'd swallow her own needs to keep the peace. And I'd done that my whole life. But not here. Not anymore. That night, I sat through dinner while Connor joked about dating apps and Mark laughed like nothing was off. They toasted with cocktails while I sipped water and stared at my untouched plate. And I thought to myself, this isn't a marriage. It's a performance. I was the one woman in Maui who felt more alone now than I had as a single woman. But I stayed quiet. Because I was still hoping this was a bad start to something better. I didn't know the truth yet, the real reason Connor was there. But it was coming. And when it arrived, it would tear apart every illusion I had left. The next morning, I woke up alone. Mark wasn't in bed. The sheets on his side were cold, like he hadn't slept there at all. I got up, padded barefoot into the living room, and there they were, Mark and Connor, sitting out on the balcony, coffee mugs in hand, talking in hushed voices. They stopped the second I slid open the door. "Morning," Mark said, far too casually. Connor gave me this look, sheepish, amused, as if I'd interrupted something. I forced a smile, that polite mask I'd been wearing like armor ever since we landed, and went to make coffee of my own. But something about their body language felt intimate. Not romantic. Not exactly. But secretive. Like there were layers to this I couldn't see. Or wasn't meant to. I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was paranoid. Tired. Overwhelmed. After all, Connor was Mark's cousin. They were close. That's what he'd always said. He's like a brother to me. But even brothers don't exchange those kinds of glances. Or disappear together for hours without saying where they're going. Which they did. That afternoon, Mark claimed they were going to get snorkeling gear. I offered to come. He hesitated, then mumbled something about how I should relax. Maybe book a massage at the spa. "You deserve some time to yourself," he added. And just like that, they were gone. No invite. No explanation. Just gone. 2 hours later, I found a receipt on the hotel desk. It wasn't for snorkeling gear. It was for lunch at a nearby resort. A resort with private cabanas for two. I stared at the receipt like it was a betrayal etched in ink. Why lie? Why hide lunch from me on our honeymoon? That night, I asked. Calmly. Directly. "Where did you go today?" Mark blinked. "I told you, snorkeling." I held up the receipt. Said nothing. His face turned pale, then flushed red. "Connor didn't want to tell you," he said quickly. "He thought you'd be upset. We just needed to talk in private." "About what?" I asked, voice trembling. He hesitated. And that's when I knew. He wasn't just protecting Connor from heartbreak. He was protecting them both from something I hadn't even begun to understand. I slept on the couch that night, the same one Connor had claimed. I curled up under a throw blanket and stared at the ceiling fan spinning endlessly above me. Somewhere between the vows and the volcano hike we never took, my husband had become a stranger. And the cousin? He wasn't just crashing our honeymoon. He was hiding something, too. It was just after midnight. I couldn't sleep. The air felt heavy in the suite. Not hot, just suffocating. I lay there, still on the couch, the ambient glow of the hallway light seeping through the cracks of the bedroom door. Then I heard it. Muffled voices. Mark and Connor. At first, it was just a low hum, barely audible. But then Mark's voice rose, strained. "I told you, you shouldn't have come," he hissed. My breath caught in my throat. Connor replied, but I couldn't catch the full sentence. Just fragments. "You left me alone. What was I supposed to do?" Then silence. A heavy, tense kind. Followed by something that hit me like a punch to the gut. "I can't keep lying to her, Connor." Lying. To me. I sat up slowly, afraid even the creak of the couch might alert them. They didn't know I was awake. Didn't know I was listening. And I heard enough. Connor said something about timing, and "you promised me." And Mark, my husband, said, "I didn't think it would go this far." Go this far? What the hell did that mean? I didn't know what hurt more. The fact that Mark had brought another person on our honeymoon without asking, or the dawning realization that there was a secret between them that involved me. It wasn't just about Connor being emotionally unstable or freshly dumped. There was more. Something deeper. Something they'd planned together. I sat there for what felt like hours, heart pounding so hard I thought it might betray me and echo through the walls. By morning, they were back to normal, laughing over breakfast. Mark tried to hand me a fresh croissant like nothing had happened. Connor smiled like we were best friends now. And I stared at both of them with a different kind of clarity. Not anger. Not yet. But something sharper. I was being played. Used. And I was done sitting quietly. Whatever the truth was, I was going to drag it into the light. Even if it tore our so-called marriage apart. That morning, I didn't speak a word. I let them think I was fine. Played the part. Smiled. Nodded. Pretended I was excited for the boat tour they had planned. I even wore the new sundress I'd packed just for the honeymoon. The one Mark said made me look like a walking postcard. Inside, though, I was already unraveling. We got on the catamaran around noon. Tourists buzzed around with cameras and cocktails. Mark wrapped an arm around my waist as we posed for a picture, and I had to clench my jaw to keep from flinching. Connor stood nearby, sunglasses hiding his expression, but I could feel his eyes on me. The wind whipped my hair across my face as we pulled away from the shore. The ocean sparkled, innocent. Nothing about that day looked like betrayal, but it was all a lie. Halfway through the ride, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned to Mark, voice low but firm. We need to talk. He glanced at Connor. Now. Yes. Now. We stepped away to the far end of the deck. I could feel the tension in his shoulders the moment I said the words. I heard you last night. His face drained of color. I heard everything, Mark. The lies. The promises. The fact that you didn't think it would go this far. For a moment, he looked like he might deny it. That old flicker of self-preservation sparked behind his eyes. But then he deflated, and the words came out like a confession too heavy to carry anymore. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he muttered. Then what was it supposed to be? I asked. He paused, swallowed, and then the truth spilled out. Connor hadn't just been through a breakup. He'd been in a relationship with Mark. For over a year. Behind my back. It started as a mistake, according to him, a moment of weakness after a fight we had. But it didn't stop there. They kept it going. Secret rendezvous. Weekend trips, Mark said, were work retreats. And Connor? He wasn't some clueless, heartbroken cousin. He was the other man. I married you to fix it, Mark said, voice cracking. To prove to myself I could be normal. That I could move on. I felt like the boat had vanished beneath me. You used me, I whispered. You used our wedding, our marriage, to run from yourself. He didn't deny it. Didn't apologize either. He just said, I didn't want to lose both of you. That's when I realized this wasn't about love. It wasn't even about truth. It was about control. About Mark wanting to have both lives. The respectable husband and the hidden affair. And he thought I would never find out, or worse, that I wouldn't do anything about it if I did. He was wrong. That night, I packed my bags. And I called a lawyer. Because this marriage was over. By the next morning, I was no longer a wife. At least, not in my own mind. I left the hotel suite without waking Mark or even looking at Connor. I booked a different room on the other side of the resort and spent hours on the phone. First with a lawyer, then with my mother, then with myself, trying to stitch together a new version of who I was. Because the woman who arrived in Maui wasn't the same woman who would leave. I thought I would feel grief, maybe rage. But what I felt most was something quieter, relief. I'd been sleepwalking through a relationship that never truly belonged to me. Now, I was wide awake. And then came the twist I never expected. The next day, I received a message. It was from Mark's ex-wife, Jenna. She had heard what happened. Through a mutual friend. Word travels fast when betrayal explodes into the open. Her message was short but powerful. I know what you're going through. Call me if you want the truth. I hesitated. My heart still raw, my pride bruised. But curiosity and a gut feeling pushed me to dial her number. When Jenna picked up, her voice was calm. Measured. But underneath it, I could hear the tremor of someone who had lived through this fire before me. He did the same thing to me, she said. Not with Connor, but with someone else. A friend, a colleague. Always someone close enough to keep the secret alive. He doesn't love anyone, she said quietly. He collects people. Performs love. Until they get too real, and then he replaces them. I felt my throat tighten. Because that was it. That was Mark. He didn't love me. He loved the idea of me. Of the obedient wife. The shield. The performance. And when I asked her why she reached out, her answer floored me. Because I wish someone had warned me. We talked for 2 hours. We laughed, even, and cried. It felt like therapy, but better, because it came from someone who truly understood. Before we hung up, Jenna said something I'll never forget. You don't have to burn down your life to start over. Sometimes, walking away is the most powerful fire there is. That night, I walked to the beach alone. The waves lapped gently at my feet. My phone buzzed with messages from Mark, then from Connor. I didn't read them. I blocked both. Because I wasn't interested in apologies. Or explanations. Only in healing. And it had finally begun. The annulment process moved faster than I expected, probably because Mark didn't fight it. He sent one long, rambling email that began with, "You misunderstood everything," and ended with, "I hope one day you'll forgive me." I didn't respond. I didn't owe him closure. I owed myself peace. And for the first time in years, I chose me. I flew home early from Maui, alone. No tan. No souvenirs. Just a carry-on bag full of wrinkled dresses and a soul that felt strangely lighter. I walked into our apartment, gathered what was mine, and left the keys on the counter. I didn't even cry. Because somewhere in between the betrayal and the legal paperwork, I realized I had been living a borrowed life. One where I played the supportive partner, the understanding woman, the one who always gave and rarely asked. No more. I moved into a tiny studio across town. Nothing fancy. Just mine. I bought a second-hand couch, hung up a thrifted painting, and painted the bathroom wall this ridiculous teal that made me feel alive again. I cut my hair. I signed up for a cooking class. I stopped waiting for the next version of my life to begin and just started living. And the strangest part? I wasn't bitter. I thought I'd be, but I wasn't. Mark and Connor had handed me a broken mirror, and instead of trying to fix the reflection, I walked away from the frame altogether. Sometimes we're taught that love means sacrifice, that if it hurts, it must be deep, that if you walk away, you're giving up. But the truth is, some things are worth walking away from, like a man who lied to you with a smile, like a cousin who pretended you were just collateral damage, like a marriage built on secrets and cowardice. What they didn't expect, what neither of them saw coming, was that I would not break. I would rebuild, stronger, and on my terms. Exactly 1 year later, I walked into a downtown bookstore on a rainy afternoon, just to kill time. I had no idea that moment would feel like closing the final chapter on something that once nearly destroyed me. I was flipping through a poetry collection near the cafe when I heard his voice. Mark. Soft. Hesitant. Too familiar to mistake. Daniela. I turned slowly, calm as a tide. There he was, standing awkwardly by the self-help section, holding a paper cup and looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. His shirt was wrinkled, hair disheveled, that ever-practiced confidence dulled. Next to him? Connor. But not beside him, a few feet away. Distracted. On his phone. Not looking at me. I nodded. Mark. He took a step forward. You look different. I am different, I said simply. He smiled like that was a compliment he'd earned. I've thought about you, he added. A lot. I wish things had gone differently. I met his gaze, steady and unreadable. You had every chance to make different choices. He opened his mouth, probably to offer some half-measured regret, but I raised a hand. I'm not here to rehash the past, Mark. You made your bed. I hope it's everything you wanted. He looked back at Connor, then down at the floor. It wasn't. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, or pain, or vindication. I felt nothing. Not numbness. Not emptiness. Just clarity. Connor finally looked up, saw me, and froze. His expression unreadable, a flicker of guilt, perhaps, or embarrassment. I turned away without acknowledging him. Goodbye, Mark, I said, and I meant it. I walked out of that bookstore into the drizzle, letting the rain soak into my coat, my hair, my bones. And I smiled. Not because I'd won, but because I had survived. I built a life that didn't include them. A quiet, solid life that no one else owned or orchestrated. Somewhere out there, two men were still tangled in their own lies. But me? I was free. And I wasn't looking back.